A very good morning to you. Welcome to Friday Newspaper Review. This is Romy TV Africa. Make sure you follow us at all our social media platforms at Romy TV Africa. I am your host today, Regina Samuel. Now, Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition leader Raila Odinga has accused the government of abetting lawlessness and impunity. Mr. Odinga cited a last week incident where he claimed criminal gangs acting as auctioneers raided and demolished a family's home in Nairobi's Westlands estate, terminating it at an act of impunity. Reports have valued the house at 70 million shillings. They also cautioned that the move by the Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP Nurdin Haji, to drop cases against government officials as well as widespread incidences of daylight crimes and profiling of the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, that is the DCI, would only take the country to the dark old days. You remember the DPP Nurdin Haji, the former, when people like Aisha Jumwa were elected to be cabinet secretaries or nominated by the president, he dropped the cases he had against them immediately. So the Azimio la Umoja flag bearer, Mr. Raila, is saying that that will only take the country back to dark days. Now, in a statement Thursday, the former Prime Minister said the country may be witnessing a quick return of the old practice where individuals with political patronage used their proximity to power to harass innocent citizens and foreigners and take their property. A general sense of lawlessness is taking shape. Our security appears to have deteriorated overnight, with widespread incidents of daylight crimes, making families lose their loved ones to thugs in broad daylight, particularly in Nairobi, said Mr. Odinga. Now, he was referring to a last Friday incident where individuals contracted by an auctioneer descended on Mr. Niraj Shah's home, demolishing it and evicting his family from their land in Nairobi. Mr. Shah, a Kenyan of British origin, and his wife Avani were caught unawares by the group, which consisted of hired guns and police officers. Lawlessness and impunity seem to be finding their way back into our national life, targeting not just individuals but also property in a manner which rests in a previous era that Kenyans had hoped was gone forever. The Azimio leader said. He lamented in the developments came at a time the government's profiling the DCI and dividing the National Police Service into good and bad officers. At least 9 police officers from the disbanded Special Services Unit SSU have been arrested over claims of involvement in the abduction and disappearance of 2 Indian nationals and their taxi driver, Mr. Nicodemus Bonzia. The duo Mr. Mohammed Said Sami and Zulfaq Ahmed were said to have been involved in Dr. Ruto's presidential campaign. Mr. Odinga insisted that the Westlands incident, taken together with recent developments in which the DPP dropped cases against government officials, including Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, and the willingness of the judiciary to dance the tunes of the executive, points to the fact that as a country, we are flirting with lawlessness. This is the easiest way to lose a country to criminals, he said. We have seen that since the government came into power, the government of Mr. William Samoei Ruto, we have seen that the opposition leader, Mr. Raila, have been, keeping the government on check, noting each and every move that they are making, of which I can't blame him. And whatever he came up and said about lawlessness and impunity as a country, then it is true. Because we are seeing that some things are starting to go wrong instead of going right. The promises that were kept during the campaigns that were being made, we have not seen any of them being kept. We are still at a point where we are still crying for the government to do what they promised they will do. So I think the Azimio la Umoja coalition leader is doing a good job, making sure that that the President William Ruto is on check, making sure that he does the job well and correcting him wherever he's going wrong. So if he's a good president, if he's a good leader, then he's supposed to listen to the opposition leader because he has a point to make, and he's making sense in each and everything he's saying. Now, government spent that 7 billion shillings more on travel hospitality during Uhuru's last month in office. Spending on non-essentials such as travel, hospitality and training by the government rose by over 37 billion shillings as the country was busy with campaigns, elections and the transition to the new regime. Data from the National Treasury shows that within the last 3 months of former President Uhuru Kenyatta's reign to September, civil servants are gobbled up to 193.2 billion shillings in expenditure on operations and maintenance votes, which include domestic and foreign travel, hospitality, training, renting spaces for non-residential use and maintenance of vehicles. Now, spending on the items grew from 155.6 billion shillings during a similar period, July to September last year, underlining the burden added onto taxpayers' shoulders as the country faced tough economic times marked by a high cost of living. The Treasury report showed that apart from growing by 24.2%, the 193.2 billion shilling spending also breached a target to spend 167.7 billion shillings on the votes during the 3 months. Now, this means civil servants overshot their target by 15.2%. Spending on recurrent activities, which also includes salaries and pension, grew by 52.7 billion shillings within the 3 months, even as the government's spending on development dropped, from 117 billion in the quarter to September to 94.4 billion. That's a big drop. The government had, however, targeted to spend a low amount on development. Development expenditure was above target by 19.3 billion shillings to amount to 98.4 billion shillings by end of September 2022. Treasury stated in a presentation during the launch of the process to make the 2023-2024 budget. Now, spending on salaries and wages rose by 7.8 billion shillings during the quarter compared to last year, which had been projected in budget targets. Now, we have seen that the government is spending, the last regime spent a lot of money. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, in its latest review of the government's progress on implementing projects under its 38-month credit program, disclosed that Kenya failed to pay 0.7% of the country's GDP to external creditors due to a lack of money. The lender did not name the affected creditors. The lender also observed that a mix of factors, including huge amounts spent on subsidizing fuel, high inflation and disruptions in the global supply chains causing a spike in import prices, impeded Kenya's efforts on growing revenues and cutting the budget deficit. Now, Nairobi, to another story. Nairobi adds another star, beats London in luxury property gains. Nairobi has been ranked ahead of London in a global index that tracks price movements in the top 5% luxury residential properties across 45 cities in the world, raising the status of Kenya's capital as a favorite investment destination in Africa. Okay, the Prime Global Cities Index by Realtor Knight Frank, which listed Nairobi as the only African city listed among 45 global cities that recorded annual growth in the third quarter of 2022, shows that the city's ranking has moved up 7 places to 29 in the 12 months to September from 35 in the same period last year. This was 2 positions ahead of London, which ranked 31 and 1 position behind Geneva. The jump in Nairobi's position comes after luxury houses registered a 2.9% price growth in the period from 1.3% over a 12-month period to September 2021, a time when Kenya was reeling from setbacks presented by the COVID-19 pandemic. London recorded a 2.7% price, while Geneva at 3.2% over the period. It seems Nairobi is really doing good. If it can beat London in terms of luxury property gains, then that's a good job. It's a plus for our country. Now, how fight over waitress ended tragically for a journalism student. A 26-year-old college student was on Wednesday stabbed to death in a scuffle at Nokopir village pub in Kitengela, Kajiado County. the final year media student Jibril Abdullahi, who resided in Sabaki Estate along Mombasa Road, was at the pub with friends in the evening when an unknown man confronted him. The duo argued before the middle-aged man drew a knife and stabbed the student. The assailant escaped the wrath of the public that was baying for his blood. The student was pronounced dead on arrival at Kitengela Sub-County Hospital, a few kilometers away from where he had been stabbed. The OCS, Kitengela and DCI personnel in Kitengela rushed to the hospital. The body of the deceased had a single stab wound on the back right-hand red part of the police. That's OB 103 09/11/2022. A witness who spoke to the nation said the incident happened so fast. The assailant was heard claiming the student had an affair with his girlfriend. Okay, he warned him before a confrontation and he stabbed him once inside the pub. The assailant was armed with a knife and a sword, said an eyewitness. A knife in which is suspected to have been the murder weapon was recovered by detectives who visited the scene. Preliminary investigations indicate that the student was in a love relationship with an Ethiopian, a bar attendant in the same pub. Police suspect love affair as the motive behind the murder. The deceased mobile phone, which has been recovered by detectives, indicated he was in constant communication with the barmaid. On Thursday morning, the deceased camped at Kitengela Hospital morgue, trying to come to terms with the death of their loved one. They were waiting for the deceased father to arrive. He is a senior electorate body officer based in northern eastern region. The deceased will be buried at Kitengela Muslim Cemetery later in the day. It is unfortunate we have lost an ambitious young man. We want police to expedite investigation and the culprit brought to book, said a relative at the morgue. It's indeed a sad story because this student, Abdullah, he was a final year student who was completing his studies, his journalism career. He was in the last year, and now his life is gone just because of love triangle, and I think this should not be an issue to take someone's life. So I hope the culprit has been arrested by the police and the necessary measures has been taken against him. Condolences to the family of Abdullahi. Now, dead politician re-elected in Pennsylvania. That's a bit controversial. It's a bit ironic because he's dead and then he's re-elected. Many of you are wondering how, but this is the story. Now, a state lawmaker who died of cancer last month was re-elected by a crushing margin, news reports quoting preliminary results said. Tony DeLuca, a Democrat who represented a Pittsburgh suburb in the lower house of the state legislature, died of lymphoma in October 9th at the age of 85. It was too late to get his name off the ballot in Tuesday's nationwide U.S. legislative elections. DeLuca retained his seat with 86% of the votes in his race with 98% of the ballots counted. A special election will now be held to decide who gets in his seat. While we were incredibly saddened by the loss of Representative Tony DeLuca, we are proud to see the voters continue to show their confidence in him and his commitment to democratic values by re-electing him by, even if he's dead, he was re-elected. It's a bit strange, it's a bit sad for those who had voted him, for those voters who believed in him. But at 85, he was still old to rule, but anywho, maybe he was strong at some point. Now to some other stories, we have a KDF who confesses to stealing a KDF, at Embakasi Garrison. A man who stole a general purpose machine gun mounting stand from the heavily protected Embakasi Garrison in Nairobi pleaded guilty to theft charges after he was arraigned before a Makadara law court. McDonald Wanjohi admitted that he stole the stand in a Land Cruiser door belonging to the Kenya Defence Forces KDF, all valued at 56,000 at the garrison on November 8, contrary to Section 268 as read with Section 275 of the Penal Code. Wanjohi was to be charged with an alternative count of handling stolen property contrary to section 322 of the Penal Code after he was found with the items, but the same was dropped after he admitted the main charge. Now, KDF soldiers manning the garrison had a commotion inside the compound of the highly guarded establishment around 10 p.m. and upon going to check, they met Wanjohi with the two items. They arrested him and escorted him to the Embakasi police station together with the items he had stolen as exhibits. Wanjohi pleaded guilty to theft charges before Principal Magistrate Helen Okwani. The matter will be mentioned on November 15 when the two items will be presented before the court as exhibits before Wanjohi is sentenced. But no, I think because of the amnesty, if it was supposed to serve for a long time, I think then they should reduce it for them. No, that was newspaper review for today. It wasn't much. Thank you for being with us for that short time. We see you next on Monday. Make sure you follow us at Romy TV Africa for more and more and more and more at all our social media platforms. I've been your host, Regina Samuel. See you on Monday, same time, same place. Have a nice weekend.